And hello, this is Crow from Global Music Club. Welcome to another one of our live streams. I think you're getting used to them by now. So today we have our weekly review. It's Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Time goes by. And let's see what Bill Rivers has in store for us today. He always brings some interesting stuff in here.
Hi, Crow. You good?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
It is one amazing background today. Very
It's
colorful.
a bit jarring. Yeah. That's the cover art of the album, obviously, and it was actually done by the guy whose album it is, John Lydon. It's Pill. I don't know if you can see that better.
Yeah.
I can show you that. Oh, you've lost me there. So he did the artwork on the last album they did. This was from 2012. So again, apologies for not being too current. I will try and get some more current albums. So this is say again.
I think it's very interesting to go back in time, and it's important for us to go back in time. And I'm speaking for myself. I haven't heard this album yet, so I'm hoping to learn something.
Okay, as I say, I think I tried to choose. Some artists that I think are very important in music, and I think John Lydon is one of them. He's a contrary character, in interviews and that, and but I like him a lot. But, he just says some silly things sometimes when he's had a few shandies. But I really admire the guy. I really respect him. I read a book he wrote called.
I think we're having some sound trouble. Bill?
No Irish, no blacks, no dogs.
I think we're having some sound trouble today.
And I really had some affinity with him, his background and his attitude and how he thinks. And
can you hear me, Bill?
It's live.
Bill?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but the image is freezing and the sound is freezing, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Is it best to leave this? Can you hear me now? Is it?
Yeah.
No.
But
can you hear me?
If we freeze again, we'll just skip it for today if the connection is not good.
Yeah.
Because
as long as I'm not talking to myself. Okay, so do warn me.
I couldn't tell because I couldn't hear you.
Okay. I'm pretty close to the microphone, so I might end up shouting now, but never mind. Okay, anyway, John Lydon wrote this book, and I kind of, beneath all that of the character he is of Johnny Rotten, there's a nice, decent guy in there. Anyway, I don't want to go too much into his let's just talk about his music. Because I know a lot of people think he's a sellout, which I don't. Anyway, so this album was basically Pill hadn't done an album since '92, and so this came out 20 years later in 2012, and I knew nothing about it. It was one of those things. A video popped up on someone's feed on Facebook, and I thought, blimey, that's Pill. Got a new track out called One Drop, and fantastic. And I was like, it sounded great. John's voice sounded great again. So I thought, investigate this and absolutely adore the album. As I said, the problems that a lot of people have with Pill is that they most love the first three albums, first issue, and then Metal Box and Flowers of Romance, which are a bit more, you could say, experimental albums. And he was anti-rock albums, he called them. He wanted to move away from the Sex Pistols image. And he himself, he doesn't need anyone else to tell him. Kind of says he was was the forerunner for kind of techno music, probably rave with the repetitive kind of bass and dub and things like that. And then in the mid '80s, he got more commercial, and a lot of people went off him. Well, I love those albums as well. One of the albums is actually called what is it? This Is What You Want, which is kind of stating that he was very well aware he was going to do a commercial sounding album. It had Steve Vai on it, Ginger Baker, Sakamoto, so he had all these big names, great musicians. And he started doing that because of who he was. He could get great musicians to play with him. Rise, it was a great track from that that time. Anger is an energy, great line from that. So and then he was kind of 92. They did an album called Happy. I'm not aware of that album. I haven't heard it, so I can't really judge that. And then 20 years, really, I think he was just writing books. The Sex Pistols did a reunion tour, etc. So he was kind of there. His presence was there, and then suddenly he was on this Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, this kind of reality TV show in England, and which was everyone thought was a bit odd. And then even worse for most people, he did an advert for Country Life Butter, and there was Johnny's a sellout and all this lot. What we find though is that he was trying to raise money to make a Pure record because he wasn't getting any support. Nobody wanted the record companies wanted to work with him, etc. Many of them did, and so nothing wrong with butter, he said. So he kind of funded this album himself, and you got to admire that, and that's why it took so long. Not because he was artistically redundant, he just couldn't get a record made. He did do a solo for Psychopath in the 90s.
At the time, it would take less time.
Could you say that again? Sorry, Crow. I always have problems hearing. So,
I was saying that maybe if there was crowdfunding at the time, he would have done it a bit quicker.
Yeah, that's true. I bet he would have. He's still got a big fan base, and I'm sure fans would have really helped him. And maybe I think he's quite a proud guy. He's very single-blooded minded, and maybe he probably wouldn't have accepted that. He wants to be in control, I think, a bit like Marquis Smith out The Fall. And the Pill are very similar to The Fall. That he doesn't really have a consistent band. They always change, and it's really a solo project. But funny enough, the last two albums, the one I'm talking about, he did another one in 2015, but we're talking about this one. He still has the same band, so they obviously get on well, and when you see footage of them, the videos are really them in the studio, and he looks like they're having a good time. And again, it's one of those albums you can really hear that on the record. So it looks like he's found a nice band. He actually probably feels like he's in a band again. Even the Sex Pistols, he didn't really get on well with them. In fact, I think he used the Sex Pistols just as a way of expression. He thought, I've got this opportunity to express myself, and boy did he do it. The lyrics on the Sex Pistols albums particularly are just amazing and still relevant today. He's a great lyric writer. But to be honest, people say the punk thing. He didn't like the punk tag, and he wanted to move away from that. His musical taste was actually kind of prog. He liked bands like Can and Tangerine Dream, or he does like bands like that. He didn't like punk. He hated it when he looked in the audience and saw Johnny Rotten Clones. He realised it was no fun anymore. I'm getting out of this, and did something totally with Pill, which was anti-rock, something a bit more experimental. So anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. But the point is that he had this opportunity being a working class guy, and he took it by, the bull by the horns again. He took it, and he's going to use that in his own words to tell the truth, his truth. Now we can agree with some of it or whatever, but when you hear his voice on record, it's so assertive, it's so confident. You've got to admire that. Unless, even if you don't agree with what he's saying, it's like he's got confidence. I love that about him. But he's a contradictory character as well. And there's also this shyness to him, I sense, and I think he's one of those kind of typical lead singers or artists who are very egotistical or very insecure at the same time. I think he has those two things, kind of bipolar things going on. An interesting character, and I find him fascinating. He's never boring, and that's good. So irrelevant if you disagree with what he says. Same with Morrissey. Morrissey's the same. He's said some things, but how I see it is that both these guys, Morrissey and John Lydon, come from a working class background, and I do sometimes think that generally, I'm generalising, the middle class media really don't like people from that background who are intelligent and smart, and they are. Both those guys are extremely smart people, and I think
fairly much criticised.
Yeah. It's like because he's a very big. They're both big characters, and they're not scared to say what they think, and I think people don't like that. I think I said before about Scott Walker the other week, and also people want them to repeat the same thing artistically as well. They all want Lydon to be doing punk music, instead of letting them be who they are. That's if Lydon said if punk was anything, it was to be yourself. Punk wasn't about having nose rings and pink hair and what you wore. It was about being yourself. You know, it was never about what you wore, what music you listened to, what you was into. It was about be true to yourself. That's what the attitude was. So when he started seeing everyone, you know, a kind of group started, you know, like a being a punk, like being in a box.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he left.
Moving away from the essence,
Yeah, and I think people forget that, you know, and then they all go like, you know, a lot of people lost John after he left the Pistols, and then some people lost him after the first 3 Pillar records because they thought he was going commercial. He's just using music or any ways of art to express himself, you know. That's how I see it. But anyway, let's go to the album. I love all his interest in most of his albums. I remember the first album, he goes, "Hello." That's the first thing he says. On this one, it's a burp. Starts off with a burp and some and then he goes, "Lucky you," and then this is pill, you know. It's kind of self-deprecating. "Lucky you, this is pill. Aren't you in for a treat?" I love that. You know, that you know, you're in for something here. That, again, straight from the top, really, really brave and confident, I guess it is, and funny. You know, people forget he's very funny. But this album is again, I think I use this word a lot, but it's just to simplify things. I say left field. You know, in fact, he did do work with a band called Left Field. But he also has this. He always has pop sensibilities. Well, since the after the first 3 Pill albums, you know, he loves all sorts of music. Lydon, he's a music. What's the word? A museologist or whatever. He loves all sorts of music. So he, you know, from ballads, you know, soppy ballads to avant-garde stuff, everything. He just loves reggae, dub, everything, and I really like that. And you sense that in here. The band are fantastic on this album, really tight. Great drummer and the guitarist. I've written their names down just in case I forget, but you can check them out. But usually the other band members get forgotten. But Lou Edmonds on guitar and an instrument called a saz, which, to be honest, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's some kind of Turkish or Egyptian string instrument, and he plays the banjo, etc. But these tracks are very infectious. Like they kind of got you know, real groove, disco kind of drums. But the strange thing about it is, like, there's a song, I love it. Some people find it annoying, but I love it. It goes on for ages. It's called Lollipop Opera, and I never know the words to it, you know. But it's a song you should know the words to because it's so repetitive. I had to write them down. Can I rock? Because I lollipop, I take the top. Because I rock at the top at the Lollipop Opera. How can you remember that to sing along to? You know. And this is what I love about this record. Even though Lydon will always write about social things and political things, I always sense with the first Pistols albums, he really expressed what he wanted to say about abortion, about society, about everything, and really clearly. Amazing what he wrote. I always think people in their late teens, early 20s know everything. They think they know everything, and in fact they probably do. At that point, and if they can get it out in words, then that's great. Like I mentioned Rambo last week, the poet, he managed to do that. But anyway, on this, you can sense there's improvisation. You can sense that a lot of this is coming from improv and just jamming again. Like I mentioned about the Doors last week, that they're jamming, and you can see the words, and I love the play of words, not necessarily what they're saying. I love how he used his language. You know, I've just read out that Lollipop Opera. And as I say, it's such an that's the thing about this album. It's very infectious. Now, Pill fans from the early albums would like probably a few tracks. The last with kind of more avant-garde things going, experimental things, and some kind of poetry, as it were. Well, I'm going back to how I remember when I first put this on, and funny enough, Bish Bosh. I got this on the same day as Bish Bosh, and I remember Bish Bosh. I listened to it, and it, you know, as you know, with Bish Bosh, you've got to really be in the right frame of mind. And I listened to this afterwards, and this was like maybe really jumped out because I listened to it after Bish Bosh. It was just this pure energy of joy and just dance music. You know, that's what I love about it. It's dance music, but with really smart things going on. You know, it's an, as I say, after, as I said, 3 years after, they made another record. So obviously this did do quite well, and I do recommend the other album after that as well. What the World Needs Now, which is, you know, another discussion about that, where he's a bit more what the world needs now. He is making a kind of statement. On this one, not so much as a statement, just more of getting a band together. And as I say, it looks like, for me, it sounds like the first time he's in a band, you know what I mean? Like, rather than just being a solo project and getting musicians as he goes along, he's with a band, and I think that gives him joy. You know, it's good. He gets on well with them. And I think that's what I love about the feel of it, is that you can really sense that camaraderie. I can't remember. Yeah, you can sense that they're really together on it. But you know, there's not really a lot I can more to say about it. You know, I wanted to try and keep it today short and sweet as possible. I do tend to waffle on. But just to say, it's a really good album, and I do recommend it. And also, maybe I wanted to make my little point that I love John Lydon, and I don't care if people think he's a bit of a prat. I think he's great, and I think, you know, I'm so happy that this guy is in the world today, and doing his thing. You know, he's a one-off, another one-off. I always kind of introduce one-offs on this, and he's not a sellout. He's a smart, intelligent guy. He's doing his own thing and producing.
In the sense that you define punk, it would say that he is still in the movement.
Yes, totally.
And the others faded away from it.
Yeah, because they turned it into a fashion, into a style, into a gimmick, something to belong to. What I like about John is that he's an individualist. It doesn't mean he's not he's not community spirited. Far from it. I think he understands that, like everybody, I think they want everyone to just be fed and well off and comfortable, and know everyone in the whole world is our utopia, that everyone's just practically well off. But then they have that time to explore themselves as individuals, you know. So there's that kind of paradox going on, and I think that's he really celebrates that. Not celebrates. He's a good symbol of what, as I was saying, what punk really is to be yourself, no matter what that is. Even if you're an arsehole, you're an arsehole. If you're a coward, you're a coward. But be honest, you know, be aware of your faults, who you are. And then you can work with it. But if you're pretending to be something you're not, if you're hiding behind punk, as it were, to give yourself some identity, I think that's what he was fighting against. That's why, as I say, he. But then again, you can, when he's had a few shandies, you'll see him on some interviews recently. There was this, like, some punks got together, Henry Rollins and one of the Ramones, and Johnny's drunk, and he's like telling everyone he was the originator. You know, it's hilarious. You know, like, it was a really punk moment. You know, like him just kind of embarrassing and cringeworthy, but. You know, calling all the other ones like pretend, you know, one of these where he's the real deal. There's that, you know, that's funny, you know, as well. Like, you know, it's honest, and that's what I like about him. You know, as I say, I think what happens when he's being interviewed, or he just says what's on his mind, and so he just sounds contradictory. But he's in the moment and he's behaving as he is at that time. So sure, he's going to say stupid things, especially if you're a public figure, you're going to say, but then again, most of the time he says some really smart things, and I think, you know, as I said, bypass all the other stuff, you know, and listen to what he's really saying. And I do recommend the books I mentioned earlier. Well, No Irish, No Blacks, No Dogs, and then his autobiography from 2015, Anger is an Energy, which is from the song Rise, which he just kind of writes, I think he writes what he's thinking, he just writes it down, it's written like that. I don't think he even bothered to check it for grammar or punctuation, but you really hear his voice in it. So yeah, you know, I respect the guy, I love the guy, and this album is just great. It's just pure pleasure, you know. That's it, really. I really can't say much more, but to anyone who's listening, just put it on and enjoy it, and you know, that's really all I can say.
With all the albums you review, because you're, as we've said before, you're taking some key albums of the music history, which is quite educational, and especially if younger people are listening to us and haven't lived at the time and want to go back and find out some jewels. I think the albums you have been bringing are an example of very good music.
Yeah, I always worry that I'm going to sound like a dad. You know what I mean? Like music was much better in the old days. You know, so I really do want
It's not a question
to
of it being better,
yeah,
but I think that sometimes we need to go back to the roots and understand today by going back and
yeah,
where
yeah,
today's music comes from. It's not that today's music is better or worse, but it had an origin, it had influences, and there are many things that we only understand if we go back to those influences. I mean, how can you recognize a blues tone if you haven't heard blues? So,
mm.
in that sense, so
Yeah, yeah, I agree totally. As I say, though, I could be quite an annoying and a bit of a, like, especially when I met younger people who were kind of in bands like Sonic Youth, and I'll go like, they're all right, but have you heard The Fall? Or someone go, I like The Fall. I go, they're all right, but have you heard The Stooges? You know, so I have that bad habit of like, like, you know,
when I listen to teens like saying, "Oh, that song that's in the tops," and
mm,
I usually go like, "Well, that's one song, but if we want to compare it with this guy who has like 40 years of career,
yeah.
uh, then maybe you might want to rethink and not the quality, but you need hard work to make a career."
Yeah, I mean, as we know, the environment's a lot different now. You know, like as I said, I think I was saying that last week. It's a different environment, and it's a lot harder now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of got to. It's like the internet is great that everything can be accessible. You can make a record at home. You can put it up literally the day after,
Yeah.
and then it's all marketing,
There's so
and that's
much
where the
to
hard
choose
work.
from at the moment. It gets quite difficult to
Yeah,
to
there's two. You could say there's
find
too
jewels
much.
everywhere every day. You just
Yeah, but you have to dig, and I think that's how I see the internet is that really it's the public really now. You know, we don't need radio, we don't need A&R people, we don't even need critics to say what we should be listening to. We can do it ourselves. So you put the work in, you look for it. You know, don't need somebody to tell you what to look for. And that, but people are still lazy. You know, or their attention span isn't as great, obviously, as it used to be. I'm as guilty. I'm guilty as well. We all are. You know, I am one of those people because I was brought up in my generation who do listen to albums all the way through still. But I do understand that some people, well, don't even listen to a track all the way through anymore, which is sad. But how do you get people, as I say, maybe what we're saying about going back into the golden age of like when music was important more than just the music, it was relevant in so many ways. It was the makeup of society and change, etc. If the younger people, as it were, realise how important it is, as popular culture is generally, I do feel. And then maybe it is worth getting that message across instead of sounding like a dad going, music used to be better in the old days. You know, it's like it was relevant, and how can we make it relevant again? You know, like why it is important. But I'm talking as a music fan. Obviously, I'm obsessive. I am a music head. So and you expect everyone to think like you do, and
I
obviously they
was
don't.
sort of stuck in my comfortable environment. I used to mostly I used to listen to rock and blues and a bit of hard rock, and so like 3 or 4 years ago, I just dived into the underground and metal and death metal. So that was a very abrupt change, and I've been finding so many great bands,
And modern ones as well, aren't you? I mean, you're finding
yeah,
new.
and I've never realized there was so many bands in my country, and
Yeah.
such great bands. So I've been discovering things that I amaze me
And
every
why?
day.
Because you put the effort in, didn't you? You did it. You know, you didn't need someone to tell you. You have to put the work in. You have to
Yeah,
dig.
actually, Global Music
No.
Club came from that, from
Yeah,
discovering
exactly.
and passing on. And
Exact
I
word of
have
mouth and all
like
that, and get it out
everything, of
there. Yeah,
course, but
that's why I appreciate really what you're doing. It's growing, and that's what it has. Get people involved. We don't, as I say, that's how things have changed now. I'm still so surprised that people do still read mainstream, as we could call it, I guess, criticism or just what's on the radio. I thought that had gone. Those days had gone. To be honest, it is going on, and I don't know, but if you want to, for me, when I was a kid, I did dream, like most teenage boys, of being a rock star. I used to look in the mirror, pretend as I was Jim Morrison, and I had those dreams and that lot. But and I'm sure if I really wanted to,
Well, you went
and
further
now,
than I did. Well, you have a band, you sing, I don't. So
yeah,
where
and
does that
that's what.
come in?
But what happened, Crow, was the fact is I thought. Like, well, what's the point in doing it? Because no one really cares now. But then I thought, well, sod it. Who cares? I'm old. And like I used to laugh when I was younger at older guys in bands. And now I am one of those guys. And I thought, well, I love it and I enjoy it. And so sod it. I'm doing it, something that I love doing. And still being that kid, like, and as I said before, with my band, to be rock and roll.
The first time I saw you was in a live gig. And I
Yeah.
heard the first sounds, and I turned my head and said, "What is this?" So
yeah, great. And that's what you want. As I say, as you mentioned before in an interview, and as I said, it's not just entertainment. But as I said before, rock and roll. When we got the band together, that's what I wanted to do because it's just fun, and I think that to perform rock and roll. I think it's a very immediate thing, and you can get people into it. Only afterwards, maybe they can look deeper into it. If there's something being said, etc. But and I just thought, yeah, why not? Be an old man and still rock and roll. There's nothing wrong in that. You get to a certain age where you don't really care about what's cool or not anymore.
Nelson, he's still having fun and fun.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, these guys did have a agree when they was younger. I'm a guy who just came late.
That song where he was telling people that he wasn't dead yet. Have you heard that one? By Willie
No.
Oh, it's a great clip. It's like all those news coming up that someone died and then he did the fake news, and so he did a song on it. You should listen to it.
Okay.
It's really funny.
Someone put up that he died.
And then he wrote a song saying he was well alive. And
he's still going.
You should look it up. Okay.
Yeah, he's a character.
It was my fault that we put it up a bit longer. We'll end up doing a review on the real Beavers soon, so we might as well shut up for now.
Well, I can't do it myself.
We'll get you going.
Yeah, it's nearly done. The EP's nearly finalised. As I said, it's good. So I'm happy with it. Rock and roll and all that jazz.
So see you next week then. Thank you for this.
See you, Crow. Thanks again.
I really love that cover. It really has some beautiful colors.
It's mental, isn't it? It's great.
It is. Only problem with it is that you're in front of it, but okay.
There we go.
Okay. Nice. Okay, you can come back. Come back. Okay, we'll see you again on Thursday with some tips on electric guitar with Will from Abigail. And we will see you again next week with another jewel of an album of your choice, as usual. Okay, have a good evening, Bill.
And you.
For those listening and watching, have a good day or evening or afternoon, wherever you are. And we will be back on Thursday. See you. Bye.